Shalom, my friends. We're back. This is Rabbi Cohen speaking to you from Jerusalem on behalf of HTV, providing you the content that you're going to need to live a proudly Jewishly identified, happy, successful, conscious, meaningful, deep, sweet, beautiful life. And we're on a journey. So if you haven't seen the parts before this, I'd suggest you go back and you can look up my name on the aish.com/live web page and check into where we've come from and really where we're going. But don't worry, because each class has a message of its own, so you don't have to have seen the whole journey to get what we're talking about. But basically, what we're talking about is the whole purpose of life. And we've said that the purpose of life is to reach your potential. And there are 4 levels of potential. There's physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. So we really want to perfect ourselves in all these areas of life. And we said that the Siddur, the Jewish prayer book, mirrors this. So we begin in the morning talking about physicality and how we're going to uplift our physicality to a conscious level. And then we spoke about emotional, having emotional balance in life and having healthy and good, sweet emotions. Many people, experience pain and anxiety and fear and low self-esteem and doubt and jealousy and worry. And Judaism is really trying to tap us into the good emotions of love and compassion and joy and consciousness. So that's really the second part of our morning prayers. Then we're moving into the intellectual, having an intellectual grasp on life and meaning and truth. And we've arrived at the Shema, which everyone knows is the battle cry of the Jewish people. It's the last thing we say before we go to sleep. One of the first things we say when we wake up. It's the last thing that we say when we die. So it's a very, very important part of our liturgy. So yesterday's class was really about the first paragraph of the Shema, which is telling us that we should be giving ourselves fully to our spiritual growth, and every part of us, our hearts, and even be willing to give ourselves, our lives up to do the right thing and to connect to Hashem, to God. And that really means to our highest self, our soul, the truth of all existence. So today we're just going to look very briefly into the second and third paragraph of the Shema, and then building up to the Shmoneh Esrei, the 18 blessings, which is really the core of Jewish prayer. So it says in the second paragraph of the Shema that we really need to do everything Hashem's asking us to do. Otherwise, there are consequences. Now, this is something we really need to understand about Judaism, because sometimes it sounds a bit scary. It says you've got to do what Hashem does, otherwise he's gonna get very angry, and Hashem's anger will blaze against you, and he'll restrain the rain. If you do what he says, the rain will come. If you don't do what he says, then the rain will not come and you won't have produce. And it sounds very kind of fire and brimstone. So we've been saying in this whole series that we have to understand really what Hashem is and how we can relate to Hashem. So we said the whole Torah is written in an anthropomorphical level, which means we view Hashem in human terms. And we call Hashem our Father and our King, and we say he gets angry, and we say he gets jealous. But it's not because he really does. We said it's because we don't know how to relate to an infinite divine being. We're finite beings. To have a relationship with a being beyond time and space is completely spiritual in nature, is beyond us. So what we do, God himself wrote the Torah in a way that we can understand. And he said, I took you out of Egypt with a strong right hand. Even though he doesn't have a strong right hand, it's because I've got a strong right hand and I can understand what that means. So what Judaism is really teaching is, and it's a very empowering idea. We think reward and punishment is disempowering, and it makes the whole of Judaism fear-based, and it's all about do what I tell you, otherwise you'll be in trouble. But once we understand it on a much deeper level, it's exactly the opposite. It's completely empowering. What it means is that there are consequences to your actions. That's all. There are consequences to your actions. So, for example, if I say to my children, you must brush your teeth. And if you don't brush your teeth, you're going to get tooth decay, and it's going to be very painful. So if they don't brush their teeth and they get tooth decay, did I punish them? The truth is, I didn't punish them. There's natural consequences if you don't brush your teeth. You get tooth decay, and it's very painful. So Hashem is saying there's also some natural consequences to you not living in line with your soul. You have to remember, we've defined mitzvahs not as burdensome obligations that we have to do to make Hashem happy, but mitzvahs are actually the building blocks of spiritual health. So there are 613 mitzvahs, and we say there are 365 things that are not healthy for you spiritually. You can't eat pig. I don't really understand why. It's shatnez. It's a mixture of wool and linen. That's also not good for you. It doesn't make any sense to me, but the Torah is saying there are certain things that they're not spiritually good for you. Obviously, there's things that we do understand, like don't kill and don't steal and don't take advantage and don't hate people and don't bear a grudge and don't take revenge. Those things we can understand are not good for our soul, but there are also other things that there are consequences spiritually if we don't do them. And then there are 248 things that Hashem says are good for our soul. To love our neighbor as ourselves and to give 10% of our charity. That makes sense to us. But there's also something called eating matzah. And for some reason, eating matzah is actually very good for our soul. Might not be so good for our stomachs, but it's very good for our soul. So consequences. So we don't believe so much in this idea of kind of a vengeful reward and punishment. We believe in a system of consequences to keep us in line. By the way, I might say to my children also, if you don't brush your teeth, I'm not going to give you chocolate anymore. It's not because I'm punishing them either. It's because if I give them chocolate and they're not brushing their teeth, then they're going to get tooth decay. So this is a way of keeping us in line with our souls. That's all it is doing. And we've got to try and tap into that. But that means that if I don't do what I'm meant to be doing, Hashem says the rain isn't going to come, which actually completely empowers me, because it says God's influence on the world, this divine influence on rain and stuff, depends on us living in line with us. So God, so to speak, can't help us if we don't make ourselves into a vessel, into a pure vessel to be able to receive God's blessing. Then, so to speak, obviously God can do whatever he likes, but he's set up this system that if we're not living in line with our souls, then the channels of abundance and the channels of blessing, they can't come through. So of course he wants to give us rain. Of course I want to give my children chocolate. Of course I want to give them chocolate. But if they're not brushing their teeth, I can't give it to them, because that wouldn't be kind or fair of me. So this is actually a very, very empowering thing. We also have to understand that the Gemara teaches that there isn't really a reward for mitzvahs in this world. Mitzvahs are on such a high level, and the reward is spiritual bliss, that you can't get your reward. You can't pay that money. There is no reward that you could receive in this world. Even if I gave you all the lottery money ever, the reward for doing one mitzvah is 1 billion times more than all the lottery money you could ever think of. So you don't get reward in this world. However, we see in the Shema, it says, if you do what Hashem tells you to do, then you'll get your rain in its proper time. And you'll gather in your grain, and you'll have all these good things happen. So it seems that it's a contradiction. We are getting reward. So I heard an analogy. Let's say there's a CEO of a company, and he gets $10 million paycheck at the end of the month. But he also has a beautiful office in Manhattan overlooking Central Park, and he has a fridge with all wine or whatever he wants in it, and he's got a beautiful couch in his office. So all those nice things in his office, that's not actually what he's working for. He's working for his paycheck at the end. Those are just perks that he gets to help him do his job. But we don't say the office is what he's working for. He's working for the money. So too, we say the reward for the mitzvah is in the world to come, but the rain and the food is just kind of perks so that we are free to be able to do our spiritual work, because it's very difficult to connect to Hashem and do what we need to do when we're just struggling to survive the whole time. So Hashem says, I'll give you some things to make life easier so that you can spend your time with more peace of mind, so that you can work on helping other people and doing mitzvahs. So fine, this is the second paragraph of the Shema. It's really talking, it says reward and punishment, but we're really talking about consequences. The third paragraph of the Shema says two major ideas, maybe three ideas. The first one is talking about tzitzit. We have a mitzvah to wear tzitzit. We have strings on our clothes. And what the tzitzit teach us is, it says, why are you wearing tzitzit? So that you consistently remember the mitzvahs. You'll see it and you'll remember all the commandments. We actually finished off the last class saying that Judaism doesn't say that spirituality is kind of a few times a day when I'm praying, or when I'm learning Torah, or when I'm doing a mitzvah. We really want that everything that we're doing in our life, we're constantly thinking and being God conscious. It's not that I have my spiritual life, and then I also have my business life, and then my relationships, and then my social life, and then my personal life. We don't have that. We have those things, but it's all part of living a deeply spiritual life. So when I'm doing the washing up, I'm thinking about how grateful I am that I have things to wash up, and I have some food to put on my plate, and I'm experiencing that it's amazing that I have water in the tap. I just finished reading Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and he said just the idea of having a shower, where they couldn't believe it. They were in the concentration camps. They just didn't have a shower for years and years. To stand under a warm shower. So every time I stand under a warm shower, I feel so grateful for everything I have in my life. And the tzitzit is really telling me, is reminding me all the time, you want to be living on a higher level of God consciousness. In fact, I remember when I first became more observant, I went back to England, and I went to see all my friends, and they were doing the kind of stuff that I used to do when I was younger. And they offered me to join in with the extracurricular activities, should we call them. And I was kind of tempted in a way, but then I saw my tzitzit, and I was like, you know what? It's just, I'm not that person anymore. I'm holding myself to a higher level now, and I'm constantly aware of who I want to be. So I took my tzitzit off, and I didn't. So I didn't do it. Now I want to be consistently God conscious. So the third paragraph of the Shema also talks about techelet, which is the blue string. Some people wear it, some people don't. But the Torah says that we should have a blue string on our tzitzit. And why should we have a blue string on our tzitzit? The Gemara tells us because the blue string reminds us of the ocean, the blue ocean. And the blue ocean reminds us of the sky. The blue sky, and the sky reminds us of the Kisei HaKavod, the divine throne. And the divine throne reminds us of Hashem. So this is why we have the blue on our tzitzit, so we remember the sea, so that we remember the sky, so that we remember the throne, God's throne, and we remember God. So it's an interesting question. Why doesn't it just say the blue reminds us of God? It's a direct contact to God. And once again, it's teaching us this idea that spiritual awareness and spiritual growth has to go in steps. You can't just jump straight to Hashem. You got to be more grounded and more consistent in everything we do. As we said, we want to be constantly aware of Hashem, but that doesn't mean go and sit and meditate for 10 hours. It means in everything we're doing, it's just a slow process, one step in front of the other step, to connect to a more God conscious understanding of reality. The other thing it says in this is Lo tataru achrei levavechem va'achrei einechem. Lo tataru achrei levavechem va'achrei einechem, which means don't just go after your eyes and your heart. Don't go after your eyes and your heart. With many people, we're just so drawn to whatever we want. You know, I want that chocolate cake, so I'm going to have that chocolate cake. I want to sleep, so I'm going to sleep. Judaism teaches that really the key to success in life is something called self-control. Self-control, and that really means that yourself, your neshama, should be in control. Don't just don't just do whatever you feel like doing. There are very many people in the world whose whole life is just about fulfilling their desires. Doesn't matter what they are. I'm just gonna do it because I want to do it, or are just completely overwhelmed by their emotions. So most of the decisions in life is just, this is how I feel. I actually once had a student at Aish, and he came for 2 weeks, and he loved it, and he was growing so much, and he was connecting to his Jewish identity, and he was happier than he'd ever been, and learning tools to control his mind and have a positive attitude. After about 2 weeks, he came up to me and he said, "Look, Rabbi, I love it here. It's so good for me, but I'm really homesick. I want to go home." So I said, "Okay, that's cool. Just stay in touch." And we got H.com, and now we got HTV, and you can keep growing and ask me any questions you want. And he said, "I just want to tell you that my home life is really, really awful." I was like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, his mother is an alcoholic, and she hits him quite often, and him and his friends sit around and they smoke weed all day, and they tease each other, and they go clubbing." And he said, "My life is actually really unhealthy, um, but I miss it, I'm more comfortable there, and I'm really homesick. I want to see my friends, my parents." So I said to him, "Look, I really understand it. If you want to go home, I'm always going to be here for you, and I'm going to support you. But is there any way you could stay even though you feel homesick? Do you have to go home just because you feel homesick? Does that mean you have to go home? You know that the better decision for you is to be in a healthy environment that's helping you grow and helping make you more happy. So rather than just going home because you feel like going home and you know you're going to be unhappy there, it's going to be difficult. I'm not saying overcome your homesickness. I'm saying you can feel it, but it doesn't mean you have to let that make your decision for you. Rather try and let your intellect make the decision for you. So we're saying your heart is very important. By the way, if you've been watching any of these classes, I've taught that Judaism is all about the heart, but we need to run the emotions through the filter of the intellect as well. Is it intelligent? Is it healthy for me to go after what my heart is telling me? So unlike animals, you got a hungry animal and you put food in front of a hungry animal, it has to eat. We don't have to do that. Means don't be controlled by your physical cravings, and don't be controlled by your emotions. Don't be controlled and overwhelmed by them. Don't make your decisions based on them. Definitely acknowledge them. Don't ignore them. Acknowledge them, but then work out. This is why we're saying this is the intellectual part of the human and of the prayer service, is saying, are these emotions and cravings and tendencies that I'm experiencing, are they really in line with my soul? And are they connecting me to Hashem? And are they taking me to where I need to go or not? So self-control is really key. In life, really, if you have a positive attitude and you have self-control, and self-control basically means I'm going to do the right thing, even if it's very difficult for me. I'm doing the right thing, even if it's very, very difficult for me. I'll put in the effort, I'll have discipline. And I'm not doing the wrong thing, even if it feels very good. And this is what we say, our Yetzer Hara, your negative inclination. It's driving you to do the wrong thing. It's driving you to do something that maybe feels good or make you look good, but it's not really good and healthy for you. And it's also driving you, and it's also stopping you and creating an obstacle for you to doing the great things. So self-control is how you beat the Yetzer Hara. Self-control means I'm going to do the good thing, even if it's very difficult. And I'm not going to do the bad thing, even if it feels really good to me. So really, that's what the Shema is telling us. Paragraph 1, there is a God, there's only God, and we should live our whole lives and even be prepared to die, give up our lives, but rather live our lives to connect to God consciousness. The second one is saying that there's consequences to our actions. So we're actually very powerful. We're very powerful in this world. If we do what we're meant to do, it's going to be good for us and good for the world. And if we don't, there are consequences. It's not going to be so good for us and good for the world. And the third paragraph is telling us to try and have this consistent awareness of our purpose and God in our lives. And to be able to do that, you're going to need self-control. You're going to need to be able to push yourself to do the right thing and stop yourself from doing the wrong thing. Then very briefly, we're about to come up to the Shemona Esrei, but the blessing that we say after the Shema and before the Shemona Esrei, one idea about it, I could talk about it forever, is we keep saying the word emet, truth, 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 emet, 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 truth, truth, truth. And we really learn that truth is the foundation of everything. And we're living in line with the truth, even beyond our intellect. We're coming to beyond our intellect. There is the truth of reality. And am I connecting to that? Am I living the truth? The word for truth in Hebrew is emet, which is Aleph, Mem, Taf, which is the first letter of the Aleph Bet, and it's the middle letter of the Aleph Bet, and it's the last letter of the Aleph Bet, which means it spans the whole of existence. Actually, if you take the first two letters, Aleph and Mem, spell Aim, which means mother. And if you take the last two letters, which are Mem and Taf, it spells Met, which means death. From mother to death, from the beginning to the end, from the beginning of the Aleph Bet, our whole life, as long as we're trying our best to live in line with the truth, then we're going to be able to achieve what we're meant to be achieving in this world, and perfect ourselves as people and perfect the world around us. So tomorrow we're going to be talking about HaTefilah, the prayer, the Shemona Esrei, which is the core and the foundation of all Jewish prayer. I hope you are trying to